Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining for this webinar by Tontatere College of Engineering Alumni Association. This is Gaganjeet Singh. I'm from VAV. VAV is the official alumni engagement partner of TC Credit. Without further ado, I request Mr. S.S. Khaji to please come on a platform and introduce the speaker along with starting the session with the welcome address.
Yes, sir.
Khaji, sir, please go ahead. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Gaganjit. Good evening, everyone. As you all know that this meeting is arranged on the occasion of this webinar or topic on career paths for mechanical engineers. First, I welcome our beloved HOD, Dr. D.M. Gowder, sir, and respected Principal, Dr. M.M. Mauti, sir. And I heartily welcome our proud alumni, Mr. Raghu Kumar B.S., who is the technical specialist, product compliance, uh, and certification engineer in Cummins, USA, who has accepted our invitation and ready to present a topic on career path for mechanical engineers. I welcome you, sir, Raghu Kumar, sir. And I welcome my dear students and faculty members. Now, I take this opportunity to introduce our proud alumni, B.S. Raghu Kumar, who is 2004 batch passed out from mechanical engineering from our college. And he has completed his graduation in mechanical engineering in 2004 from TC, and his educational qualifications are he has completed executive masters in engineering management from Cloud State University, Minnesota, and he has completed his masters in machine design from VTU, and he has completed diploma from DT from VTU TCE VTU, and he has different certifications. He has certified design for Six Sigma at Cummins and facilitator for team-based work system at Cummins, certified internal auditor for ASEN 9100 2009, and project management certification he got from Cummins. And he has the different highlights of, I will highlight his qualifications, admirable experience in managing various types of engineering projects, and he has remarkable ability to communicate with team members, proficiency in risk management and schedule management. He has good working knowledge with different agencies, and he has participated in design reviews, leading construction reviews, and he has skill to analyze processes, resolve problems, and his key skills are in CAD CAM CAE in all the software fields. He has having the skills like already our students know. Here they are familiar with different softwares they are learning through their academics. CAD CAM CAE. In CAD CAM CAE, just I will highlight different bill of materials, EBOM, MBOM management, machine design, CAD skills, CAD management, and process improvement, design for Six Sigma, preparing test plans, people management, technical program management, new product development and life cycles. All these are key skills of our key speaker, B.S. Raghu Kumar. And the products and components he has handled so far in his experience, gansets for stationary and recreational vehicles applications, inverters, energy storage systems, electronic control systems, HDMI systems, alternators for both LV and HV applications, lightweight and heavyweight, and power hand tools, automatic transfer switches, parallel switch gears, enclosures for gensets, conveyors for material handling. And he is having a vast experience also, and he has been worked with different companies. He has worked with the Sukhjivan Engineering Works as a mechanical designer from 2004 to 2005, and from 2005 to 10 he is a manager in engineering Cummins Generator Technologies India Limited, and from 10 to 12, from 2010 to 12, he has worked as a lead engineer in Toyo Denki Power System, and from 2007 to 2016, he has worked as a project manager in Creative Synergies Group LLC. And from 16 to 17, he has worked as an assistant project manager in Tal Technologies Inc. And now presently, till date from 2017 till date, he is working as a technical specialist, product compliance and certification engineer in USA. This is what the brief introduction of our proud alumni B.S. Raghu Kumar I welcome we on behalf of our beloved HOD, our faculty members and students. I heartily welcome B.S. Raghu Kumar to present a topic on career paths for mechanical engineers. Over to you, Gaganjit.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for a warm welcome. I request Mr. Raghu Kumar BS to please take the platform and go ahead with the webinar.
Yeah, thank you, Gaganjit. Thank you, Kazi, for introduction. Good evening, friends. Myself, Raghu Kumar BS. Today, I will be discussing briefly about career paths for mechanical engineer. First, like I have a slides, maybe maybe 35 to 40 minutes. We'll spend time on the slides, and after 40 minutes, then we can go for question and answers round. So, if you have any questions in between, either you can ask in between, or we can wait for the question and answers round. So this is a disclaimer. So today, what are the opinions or recommendations are offered? These are on my own, and none of those are with my current or with my past employers, and none of the information contained in this presentation is to be considered as a legal advice. I'm presenting this information only as an advice and for your information and for education purpose only. And the agenda for today's webinar is, first briefly, I will go through my journey. Already Kazi has gone through my journey. So briefly, I would like to go on my journey. And what are the different careers and domains are for mechanical engineer? What jobs can a mechanical engineer do? And I will discuss briefly about the new product development process. And what are the recommendations to be in an engineering field? How to get a job with no experience? And briefly we'll discuss about the interview preparation, and what are the professional certifications you can get in future as a long-term goal, and I'll discuss some of the project management or Six Sigma tools, and we'll share with you some of the online linked resources where you can use for your future reference, and last we'll go with the question and answers round. My journey, after my 10th standard in 2000, then I did my diploma in mechanical engineering from Nagir Polytechnic in Bangalore. That was a 3-year course. Then I did my bachelor's in mechanical engineering. Again, it was a 4-year course. During that time, there was no lateral entry when I joined in 2000 for engineering. I think from 2001, the lateral entry has started. So passed out in 2004. Then between 2004 and 5, I was working as Sukhjeevan Engineering Works. It's a small scale industry where I was working as an design engineer. I couldn't capture that information over here. But after that, in early 2005, I got as a graduate intern in Cummins in Pune as an off-campus hiring. So initially, I started with I was oriented with the different departments. Basically, I started my career in manufacturing industry. So started with plant engineering, plant operations, and current product engineering. There I was maybe close to 1.5 years. I was on rotations with a different department to get some hands-on experience on the product knowledge. And I was in the division for manufacturing of AC generators. It is not a genset, it's an AC generator. It's an electrical equipment. And then I think somewhere around in 2006, I moved on to the engineering department where I was working as a manager engineering till 2010. And I was working on a global product development of alternators up to 3000 kilowatt AC generators. And from Cummins, then I moved on to TD Power Systems, Bangalore. That's my hometown. So basically, TD Power Systems is a manufacturing of AC generators. But they are into high range generators, they were manufacturing up to 60 megawatt. But with my previous experience working on a 3000 kilowatt genset helped me to work on higher AC generators. So I was responsible for designing of AC generators for 12 megawatt and 50 megawatt AC generators. And here I got a good experience because it's a manufacturing industry. And I used to see what are the AC generators, whatever I have designed, that was it was building in front of me. And this was not a standard product. These are all like customized product. For example, if a thermal power plant requires an AC generators, so we will start from designing of the generators from the like selection of material for the shaft, forging, castings, machining, fabrication parts, and all manual calculations. There was no any like they were not more like inclined on doing an FE analysis during that time. So doing all manual calculations, refer on the like a past projects, design files, use those as a reference files and do all these manual calculations, assume safety factors, calculation of critical speed of the shaft, minimum diameter of the shaft, selection of bearings. So all this stuff gave me a good knowledge, both on technically and non-technical experience over there. From there again, then I moved on to Creative Synergy Group. Basically, it's an engineering service industry. That I started to work as a project manager. That I worked for almost close to 4.5 years. Again, there I was managing different people for different customers on different customers around the globe, primarily for North America. And I was there. I got an exposure of for all the CAD tools. Like I can work on Pro-E, Unigraphics, CATIA, SolidWorks, all these CAD tools. And during that time, through my company sponsored, I did my master's in machine design from CMRIT Bangalore. Again, that was in a full-time course. It was tough to manage both work and college. So I used to go to attend classes from 8 to noon, and then post lunch I used to go to the office and wrap up my work till late night, and then come back. And again, my day is to start my morning maybe around 6:30. It would have been ended by midnight. It was a long, hectic year for almost 2 years, but I was able to complete my course without any backlog, completed in a good percentage. And then I moved, and again, somewhere around in 2015, I moved to US for on-site assignment. I was working with the Mitsubishi Heavy Industries. Basically, they are manufacturing of big turbines of 30,000 megawatt. And from there, again, I moved on to another company, Thar Technologies, that is Taneja Aerospace Aviations Limited. Basically, again, they are engineering services company. So there I was working as a state project manager, handling different customers. They were competitors for a Creative Synergy Group. So I was doing the same work for engineering services. And from there, again, I came to US. And around in 2017, mid of 2017, I got an opportunity to join back in Cummins here in US, in Minnesota, in northern part of US, where I'm working as a individual role, individual contributor role. I'm not handling any team over here because I want to get an experience on regulatory compliance, because that was lacking for me since I had all the engineering background from manufacturing industry and engineering service industry. So I was eager to get an fresh of regulatory compliance, and that is currently working as a technical specialist, compliance and certification engineer. And somewhere around in 2018, again, I joined for executive masters in engineering management. Again, this is through company sponsored. So it was 18 months course. I used to have classes on the weekend. Again, I completed last year. So this is my overall journey. So I have not what the takeaway is, don't think about any career designation, location or type of a job, because I have not seen if you see my career plan, like initially I was a manager, then as a project manager, then as a lead engineer, now as a technical specialist. So I am not thinking, I have not thought of about getting a designation, because to give an example, in 2005, when I joined Cummins as an intern, so my first designation was a manager engineering. So after 2 years, I started to look for a job because my hometown was Bangalore. I couldn't get a job because in 2 years, you can't become a manager. And the starting the designation at Cummins is like, I think associate manager or assistant manager. So I got designation of manager. So I couldn't get a job. So don't worry about the designations. So think about what you will learn from that industry. So initially I started with an operations, manufacturing the shop line, managing, like building those alternators of smaller range. Some of my friends, they were in IT industry and they were going for on-site and this stuff. So I didn't feel any nervous or any negative thinking about myself. Why did I choose my mechanical engineer career? Because others are going for on-site and doing all those stuff. But now, but only they know if they go to on-site, what are the work they do. Some of the, to give an example, like some people, they do just do data entry work, even they can do it in an Excel file. For those things, some people will come for on-site. So don't think mechanical engineers is an evergreen branch. So it's without mechanicals engineers, none of the other industries can work together. So think positively and apply for a job and get a good job and with a good reputed industry. And the next slide I have on is on what are the different career domains for mechanical engineers. So most of the people might be thinking you might be having only, you need to work only in manufacturing environment. We cannot sit and we might not get an experience to sit in an AC office and other stuff. But there are a couple others options for us. For example, you have like 4 different. Basically, I have, to my knowledge, I know about we have like 4 different industries. One is manufacturing or like machinery manufacturing industry, scientific R&D industry, aerospace manufacturing, and engineering services. So basically, in the machinery manufacturing is the one like where all these assembly industries that they work on the designing and manufacturing of industrial and commercial machineries. For example, it might be a special purpose machine, it might be a generators, it might be a alternators, it might be an material handling line. So there are different domains in this machinery manufacturing, different machines. So the key skills you need to have is like you need to have a design skills, testing and analysis. And also on manufacturing side, like you need to have a fabrication machining process. That is also very much important. So while designing a component, if you don't know the fabrication or other manufacturing process or machining process of that component, then you will be not able to design a proper component. To give an example, if you have a forging and machine shaft, so if you don't know the manufacturing operations, then you cannot design a shaft by considering all the manufacturing processes. You cannot give allowances on the shaft if you don't know the manufacturing processes. There is a thumb rule on the calculations. What should be from the machine surface to the unmachined surface, between the machine shaft and the forging shaft, you need to have some allowance. So those things, key things you need to keep in your mind. And also next thing is a new thing we have is on additive manufacturing familiarity. Basically, this is all like a 3D printing and this stuff. Nowadays, almost all the companies do this additive manufacturing familiarity during the product development stage. So you need to be familiar. You need to be familiar with those aspects. And the next one is CAD simulation or any other software proficiency. CAD, it might be any of the CAD. If you know 1 or 2 CAD tools, you're good to go for any of the industries, and you can learn other softwares in a quicker time. You don't need to have necessarily, there is no mandatory that you need to learn all the CAD softwares. 2 to 3 CAD software should be fine. And next on the scientific industry, it might be in a private, public, or a government, or any of the corporate R&D laboratories. Again, like for scientific industry, it might be like in NASA, ISRO, DRDO, defense sectors. So these are like scientific industry. So again, to get into this industry, apart from this, your manufacturing machine industry, you need to have a good creativity skills, problem solving skills, and a good mathematical skills and analytical thinking. Why do you need these creativity skills? Is because all these are like, if you go for an ISRO, it's not like a standard product available on the market. Those are like satellites, launchers, and this stuff. So you need to have a good creativity while designing those components or writing a programming or designing any of the CAD models and this stuff. You need to have good creativity while doing all those projects. And next on aerospace industry, these are the facilities that design and build engines. Basically, these engines will be of gas turbine engines, like Rolls-Royce. Rolls-Royce is the leaders in manufacturing of these, and G gas turbine engines, and other components for the aerospace industry. Again, here you need to have both mechanical and technical skills and understanding aerospace technology. Even primary, like even if you're an aeronautical engineering, then you will be going to the aerospace industry. Even mechanical engineers, automobile engineers who have a passion and interest, even they can go into this aerospace industry. A lot of things are there in the aerospace industry, like aero tooling is one of the hot market. There is a tool design for this aerospace industry. It's also on hot market. And again, you need to have a basic CAD skills and other software proficiency. And also, again, you need to have a good communication skills and creativity, because here in aerospace industry, most of the times you will be interacting with the global team. Because in India, I think they might be having a captive centers, but most of the headquarters are in outside India. And the next industry, you can focus on the engineering services. Here, this is purely on sitting in an office. You will not be exposed to any of the manufacturing process or manufacturing industries unless you get an opportunity to go to the on-site. If you are in a plant support, then you might get an experience to expose to the engineering product building. Else you will be sitting in an office by doing some CAD work. Again, to be here, again, most of the projects here are like a project. Here it will be having a project-based work structure, and it will be in a matrix organization. You might not find any functional organization over here. Most of the work here, whatever you do, it will be under matrix organization. Again, you need to have a good project management skills over here, because you'll be working on a different projects. One project might be last for weeks, and one project might be last for 2 years or 6 months. And need to have good communication skills and customer facing skills, because you'll be directly working with the customers. Because you are not designing any product for your customers, because you are working on the projects for your customers. And CAD and simulation skills, these are the primary importance over here. Technical and mathematical skills, it's good to have over here, but CAD and simulation, these are the primary things you need to be having those to get into this engineering services. So my suggestion will be is to try to get our focus to be on the manufacturing industry, because if you are in a manufacturing industry, it is easy to go to the engineering services. Once you get into the engineering services, coming back to the manufacturing industries, to my experience, it's difficult. Suppose if I'm interviewing candidates for one of the even for a CAD engineer position, if I have 2 candidates with the manufacturing industry and 2 candidates with engineering services industry, I will go with manufacturing industry engineering experience guy, because you will be exposed to all these manufacturing processes, building a component, and problem solving tools, both mathematical and analytical skills, all these skills. And we will be like as a hiring manager, will be looking for those experience than only having only the CAD skills. Because if I'm lagging with a CAD skill, you can learn those CAD skills maybe in 3 weeks, 4 weeks, or in 2 months time. But again, learning those getting those manufacturing experience, it's time consuming. You might not get an overnight of it over an period of the time, in 1 month or 2 months. So try to focus on to get a job or internship in a manufacturing industry. And if you're desperate for a job, then focus on engineering services industry. But to get initially, it will be the first 3 to 4 years, it will be tough to be in the manufacturing industry. But think about the future. Don't think about the short-term goal. Think about the long-term goal. I was unfortunate to get an experience to get a job in manufacturing industry, even though I got a job in Infosys and Cummins both at the same time. I chose Cummins. I would go with Cummins because that's a manufacturing industry. I didn't go with Infosys, even though salary package, everything was fine with the IT industry, but I was reluctant because my interest was to be in the mechanical industry, not to be an IT engineer. And next, what are the jobs can a mechanical engineer do? I think you guys might be thinking only, okay, mechanical engineer can only be only a design engineer or an production engineer. Only I think you guys be knowing only those are the two main areas. But we have got a lot of other opportunities as a mechanical engineer. So if you see on, like I have listed on around 5 different departments or in an industry. Most of the industries will be having this. Like engineering, operations, sales, marketing, project management, and customer service. So if you go for an engineering or R&D, so you'll be having a different job openings or different skill set of the engineers based on the company's portfolio. For example, they will be calling as mechanical design engineer or lead engineer. Analysis engineer, the engineer who does all this FE analysis and do some hand calculations, who call it as an analysis engineer or as analyst. Compliance engineer, who takes care of all the regulatory compliance to meet on the environmental compliance stuff. Next, you have an system engineer. System engineers are the one, like suppose if you are building any product, for example, genset, it might be having 15 subsystems. So in some of the companies, they will be having a subsystem who takes care of only the engine design. Some of the team, they will be taking care of only a turbocharger. Some team will be taking care of only on the fuel system component. So these are the subsystems. So you'll be having a subsystem engineer. And next, you will be having a materials engineer. Materials engineers are the one who will be can call as a chemist as well. But those are the engineers who will be selecting the different materials requirement for a product, whether if you're designing any enclosure, whether do I need to go with an sheet metal or a plastic. So if you go with a sheet metal and plastic, what are the advantages and disadvantages? What are those material properties? And they will also help us to selection of these materials and do some testing with the laboratories. So those and you so that you can get an experience of so that you can be selecting a good material. So the material engineering is also a good opportunity. And next will be on a validation engineer. So once you design a product, you need to validate whether it meets our customer requirements or intended operation. For example, if you select a fuel system line, whether that line, what are the fuel systems you have selected, hoses and tubes and fittings, whether that will be able to transfer the fluid from one location to other location. So those need to be validated through some testing process. So that will be done by a validation engineer. Again, validation engineer, again, it will be based on a subsystem for fuel components separately, for mechanical components separately, turbocharger separately, engine separately. And next will be on the next in the role, you can look into the testing engineer. Testing engineer, again, basically whenever you design any product, you need to test those or validate before releasing for the market. So you will be coordinating with the engineering team, primarily with the design team and the procurement team to get all the test specs finalized, and you will be able to do those tests as per those regulatory requirements or with an engineering specifications. So that is one of the other role you can focus. And next will be on the product engineering. On the product engineering is the one who provides the current product support. Suppose once you design a product, it goes live, and again, it goes live to the market, to the production. Then you need to manage the product life cycle of that product. So for that, you will be having a role as a product engineer or product engineering. So we will be supporting on the current product support. So you will not be involved in the new product development. You will be managing your current product. If it has any line issues, you will be going and solving those issues. If there are any if some engineers who have done previously will release those drawings. If there are any issues in the drawing, we'll be correcting those drawings, updating the bill of material. They will be having the engineering BOM and manufacturing BOM, two types of bill of material. So you will be working on updating all those stuff. And next, you will be having a VAVE engineer, that is a value analysis and value engineering engineer. Basically, if you want to reduce any the cost of the product ready with respect to the form, fit, and line. So for those kind of work, you can do some VAB engineering work as well. So on engineering, to my knowledge, I have listed only 7 to 8 career jobs you can opt. So whenever you find any of these jobs available on the career portal, kindly go through those job description and you can apply. So don't think that I am not a validation engineer, I cannot apply. So you can apply for this type of jobs if you want to be an engineering field. And next, if you want to be an operations field, again, you have a, I will go briefly about here. So you have an operations engineer, he is the one who takes, builds the machines on the shop floor. And the procurement engineer is the one who sources the product which required to do those assemblies. And quality engineer is the one, again, in quality engineering, we have different types of quality engineer, like we have incoming quality engineer in the sense like whenever the material comes to the plant, you need to inspect those as per the drawings. They do some random sample checking. So, and then you will be having a supplier quality. Again, they will be going on to the customer, like supplier's location, and they will be checking those components or in line to the drawing. Then you will be having a planning engineer. Planning engineer is the one who will be will be able to schedule the will be able to schedule the production of those machines as per marketing requirements. How many machines need to be built on this week and next week, this month? All this stuff will be done with the planning engineer. Next will be the manufacturing engineer. Manufacturing engineer is the one who will be coordinating between the engineering and operations and the sourcing team. Whenever any product is developed, he should be able to set up the line with all those. You need to have a proper machines, tools, and along with some skilled resources. So he is the engineer who will be coordinating with all this department and be able to lay out the layout. And a should costing engineer is another role. You can look into that. This should costing in the sense like, suppose today you are manufacturing any of the components here in India, and tomorrow if you want to manufacture that part in China or in somewhere in other countries, so this should costing engineering will be the guy who will be able to do the costing of this component. Okay, if you manufacture in India, what is the cost X, and if you manufacture in China, what is the cost Y? So based on some assumptions, some calculations, and some industrial data, so you'll be able to do those calculations. And next role you can expect on the tool designer. So to build all these components, you need to have proper tools in place, like tools and dies, punches. So all this work will be done by the tool designer. So again, this is another opportunity you can look into it. Next on sales and marketing, either you can be a marketing engineer, sales engineer, application engineer, customer engineering, or a business analyst. Some people prefer to have a MBA in sales and marketing. Even if you don't have a sales and marketing, to start with your career, you can start your career if you're a passion for sales and marketing. You can get these type of roles. And most of the people, if they're not done MBA while doing this role, while doing their job, they will do some part-time MBA or full-time MBA or distance learning as an MBA. And next role you can be on to the project management. On project management, you will be having like a product manager role, program manager, project manager, and product planning, project coordinator, and Six Sigma. So these are like different roles in the project management. Some companies may be having different designations. So, but again, these are the different type of roles you can get into as a mechanical engineer. And next on customer service, you can be on a service engineer, as a field engineer, and installation engineer. And again, here also like there are other different departments under service engineer, but again, these are the at high level. These are the different three groups which I'm aware of. So these are the different jobs you can do as a mechanical engineer. So whenever you go to any career website, kindly look into that job roles. And don't think that, okay, if it is only an procurement engineer, I cannot apply. So just go through those job descriptions and correlate your engineering experience and build up your resume, and then you can apply for those jobs. Next on the new product development process. Briefly, I will go how we do any new product development in the manufacturing industry. First, if you see on the phase one, most of the companies, they do projects on different phases, like either product PMBOK methodology, like initiation, planning, execution, monitoring, control, or closing. So some company, they have a phase 1, 2, 3, they have a M1, M2, M3, so different names, but the content of those will be more or less, it will almost 80% of that will be the same. On the phase one, that the project start of the project starting initiation process. In that, you will be doing some market study, and you will be doing some feasibility study, and you will be working on the customer inputs that you will be getting through our marketing team. Then you will be identifying the project resources, project timeline, and the finalizing the project scope. So to do this, all these phase one activity, these are the different groups will be involved: the marketing team or sales team, engineering team, and the project management team. So there will not be only 3 people. There might be multiple people. As you see in engineering team, there are in previous slide, there are different like jobs you can do as an engineering, as an engineering team, part of engineering team. So different maybe people will be involved in during this phase of this project. So once this phase one is completed, so then they will move on to the phase 2. Until unless they have a signed off from this cross-functional team, you cannot move on to the phase 2. So you need to do all these activities before going on to the phase 2. Even same thing applies to all the phases. So if you want to complete one of the phase, you need to complete all those activities, get a sign off from this cross-functional team, then only you can move on to the other to the next phase of the project. And on the second phase, you will be doing some concept design. Concept design, either it may be a hand sketch or through some preliminary calculations. And once you're done with concept design calculation, next we will do some CAD design and FE analysis. Either you can use any 3D model or through AutoCAD, depends on the complexity of your project. Then you will be doing some rapid prototyping. Then you will be planning for the testing of these prototyping components. And then you will be revisiting the customer input, because you have received the customer input over here. So at each phase of the project, you need to revisit the customer inputs, whether are you meeting to the customer requirements or not. But again, during this phase of the project, you will be having engineering team, procurement team, quality, manufacturing, tool design, and project management. Again, see, we will be involving all these cross-functional stakeholders during second phase of the project. And again, there will be a lot of interactions between each department during all these phases of the project. And also there will be interactions between the phase 1 and phase 2. That sometimes while doing the phase 2, you might go back to the phase 1 and you might make some change to that if something is need to be updated on the whatever you have done in the past with the acceptance of the customer, or if there may some if there is some changes to the project scope, you need to review with the project management. So there will be overlapping between the different phases, but along with the stakeholders of the different cross-functional team. And next, you will be going on to the phase 3. Once you have done this phase 2 concept design and the prototyping, you will go on to the phase 3. Again, in phase 3, you will be doing all this performance testing, validation, that is a pilot run. And again, based on these test results, if you want to validate or design update or refining of your product design, you will be doing in phase 3. Then the manufacturing team, they will be parallel. They will be doing the manufacturing study, what all the machines they need, what are how the layout need to be modified or updated. Then again, we need to revisit the customer inputs. So, and again, here at high level, engineering team, quality, manufacturing, project management team, these are the teams again will be involved during this phase 3. So again, then once the sign off is done, then next we'll be moving to the next phase, the phase 4, where all you have done all this testing and everything. So in phase 4, you will be finalizing the suppliers, costing of those components, because here you might have got on the prototyping. For prototyping, you might have gone to the some local supplier, but to the long run for the production of those equipment, you need to be like selecting a supplier who has got a capability to meet your demands. So then again, you will be doing the final testing and validation, because you have done some design updation over here. So again, you need to finalize those testings and validations. Then you need to verify the manufacturing readiness, whether all these manufacturing team is ready for releasing the components or not. Then again, you will be releasing all those engineering drawings, specifications, bill of materials, EBOM, MBOM. So basically, EBOM is the one they call it as an engineering BOM, and MBOM is the one they call it as a manufacturing BOM. So EBOM in the sense how your design, based on that you'll be releasing the bill of material, and MBOM is our manufacturing BOM. That will be how you are building the product. Suppose if you take any of the cable ties, some of these components, you need not to be there in the engineering BOM. Those can be there in the manufacturing BOM, because those are not important for the engineering BOM. So those are like those all will be used during an assembly of the product. So that's why in industry you'll be having both engineering BOM and manufacturing BOM. So some of the when you go for any job, there is two different types of BOM, then don't get panic. Both are same. Primarily, manufacturing BOM is driven from the engineering BOM. Then again, you'll be revisiting those customer inputs, and then you will be signing off all these cross-functionality. Once you are done with this phase 4, you'll be moving on to the phase 5. Again, here all this basically is a project closure stage. We'll be handing off all the product design drawings, bill of material, all this stuff to the manufacturing team. Basically, you're transferring the ownership from engineering team or project management team to the manufacturing team. Then again, handing off to the current product engineering team to take care of the future of this product, capture lesson learned, then close the project. Sorry. Basically, this is a new product development process at a higher level. So almost like 80 to 90% of the companies adopt this process. There will be some slight tweak based on their company process. But if you know this basic process, that should be fine to attend for an interview. Next, I'll be taking looking on recommendation to be an engineering field. I suggest if you want to be an engineering field, you need to have a knowledge of all these subjects. Basically, already you have gone through this in your engineering, but you need to have a good understanding of those when an interviewer asks about questions about this, all this mechanics, strength of materials, machine design, GD&T, stack up analysis. So these are important for you to be in an engineering field, and learn any of the 2 to 3 CAD softwares. And AutoCAD is the basic one. I think you might be knowing already now. So apart from that, if you can learn any of these other CAD tools, either CATIA, Creo, SolidWorks, or Unigraphics. Basically, CATIA is used in aerospace industry or automotive industry. So if you're focusing on automotive industry and aerospace industry, then go for CATIA. If you're not interested for aerospace or automotive, then go for Creo or SolidWorks or UGNX, that is Unigraphics. Then if you want to be in analysis field, learn any of the CAS software, maybe ANSYS, ANSA, HyperMesh, and these other softwares. You need to be aware. And also, if you want to learn CAS software, again, you need to have some hands-on knowledge on a CAD tool as well, because you need to import all your models for doing analysis and this stuff. So this is just a recommendation. Again, it is left to you. What are the subjects you need to get prepared for interview based on the job description. Most of the interviews, sometimes they will ask strength of materials and machine design is the common thing. They will be asking you the questions. Sometimes if you're not able to answer those questions, then they will ask, okay, well, tell me a subject which you are having more interest, or which you're passionate about it. So then if you test strength of materials, then they will ask you questions, basics of strength of material questions, so that you need to be well aware of those things. Next, how to get a job with no experience. Since you are freshers and now getting a job is difficult, even we feel the same thing. So my understanding is like my tip is to get to a job is to volunteer or do an internship. So volunteer is the one of the quickest and easiest way to build up experience. It gives an experience like if you're volunteering any of the for a good cause or for any of the natural disaster or any other stuff. So it gives an like you're an extrovert coming to help to the other people You might not get any return in any of the monetary benefits, but you will be getting an experience of people management, how to interact with the different people, with the different interpersonality skills people. So volunteering is one of the good thing. And also like we have around 15+ years of experience. Even we do our volunteering work every year. So I think we need to spend 1 day of our working hours and volunteering in a quarter. So yearly, almost 4 days, we do our voluntary work. Company pays for us for the day salary, but still we go and do our volunteering work. So all the employees and almost like 70 to 80% of the companies, they allow their employees to do this volunteering work. And another option is to do an internship, so where you will get an exposed to the real industry projects. So again, again, I agree, it will be in small duration. You might be doing internship for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, or 6 months, depends on the nature of the project you get. But again, at least something is better than nothing. So you'll get some good experience on industry related projects. So kindly do all those, look for those opportunities. And when you go for any of the career website, you can search as a student or internship opportunities on the career website, because those are the one related for this college hires. So in some of the big companies, you go on the career website, they will be having a filters like, okay, you can select a full-time role or a student or internship roles. So you can apply for those. And also, like, I think some of the industries in I think even globally, all over the world, each manufacturing industry, they need to take minimum number of interns every year. There is a government rule, I guess. I don't know what is the exact number, but there is some guidelines from the Ministry of Labor. So they need to have minimum number of people as interns each year. And next, try to be focused on extracurricular activities. So as an undergraduate, employees understand that you will be lacking some experience. So if you have some extracurricular activities, that gives you an better than other candidates. So if you have any of those extracurricular activity skill set, try to improve on those. Don't lose focus on those stuff. Then you might get a questions like, what is your identifier accomplishments? Okay, since we have got experience, we could speak of our past experience, but you are a fresher, so you will not be having that experience. But you can utilize your university projects, will speak about your accomplishments. So what are the achievements you've done on your project? You can list down those achievements, and you can speak about that. And any of the publications if you have made, or any of the conferences you attended, you can speak on those. And if you know any of the extra additional languages, like the German, Japanese, or Chinese, any other languages, you can talk about those as an achievements during the interview process. And then structure the resume, and always don't have any generic resume for any of the job roles. Suppose if there is an if you are applying for an system engineer role, so you cannot have your operations engineer role experience skills, highlighting those skill sets on those resumes. So basically, whenever if you are applying for any of the work, kindly relate your academic work related to the job description. Already, you might have studied all those things, either if there is any for applying for any operations job. Then you have done the, I think you might have studied about the operational research subject in engineering. So you can relate some of those skill sets from the war subject onto your resume. Prepare well for interview on both on technical and non-technical skills. Both are important. If you're good at technical and if you're not good at non-technical skills, then you might not get a good ratings from the interviewer. So you need to be focusing on both technical and non-technical skills. And one of the other important thing is research on the companies which you are applying and understand their products and the latest services or any these new products they have launched. This is very much important. 100% sure these questions will be there during the interview. Like you need to, if you're applying if you're going for interview for an Bosch or Eaton or any of these companies, kindly first understand the job description for what position they are calling. based on that, suppose if you go for an Eton, they might be having a fluid lines, hydraulic lines. So then at least try to read basics of hydraulics subjects, whatever done in the engineering, so that you could answer some of those questions. You might not be able to answer all the 100% questions. It's good to answer all the 100% questions, but at least out of 10 questions, if you answer 8 questions, then you should be in a good shape. And researching on the companies is an good thing. So then again, interviewer feels, okay, all this guy knows about our product, it's good to hire him. Or you might get a good ratings and compare with other interviewers. And again, networking. Again, it's a good opportunity. Suppose if you go for any of the publications or conferences, try to interact with other industry professionals. So keep in touch with them. Research, like go through their profile, what they have done in the past. So what are their experiences? Then how can you align your interest and your experience to their experience and be successful like them. Next, briefly, we'll go through on the interview preparation. On the interview preparation, when I prepare for any interview, I always split my preparation into 3 different areas. So one is on interview technique. So during my pre-interview preparation, I will concentrate on developing my interview techniques. So that might be creating the positive first impression. It's like first 30 to 40 seconds are the one, like the interview will assess your positive skill set. So the first impression is the best impression. So don't be slow during the start of the interview, or just you remain focused during the entire interview time. So be on the positive. So try to create a positive first impression, and you need to have a good presentation skills and how you present yourself to the interviewer. That's also gives a positive impression. A good effective communication and the body language and posture. This also speaks about positive impression for the interviewer. And then next is on research, or as I already said, so try to research on the company you are visiting or you are applying for a job. Accordingly, tweak your resume and correlate your engineering experience to those job description, and also that will help you in assisting the preparation for those interviewers. And responding to the interview questions. So the majority of the interviews will contain 2 different types of questions. There might be a motivational questions and situational questions. So you need to be prepared for all those question and answers. So like I think you might have studied organizational behavior subject. So try to learn some of those concepts and get prepared. So now you are like in nowhere in the world where you can get more information on the Google. So before going for interview or getting prepared, or when you get a time, kindly prepare yourself for your interview. Don't wait for till the last. Okay, tomorrow if there is interview, tonight I will sit and study. No, don't do that, because you will not be able to express those things in a natural way, and you might not be able to create your positive first impression. So prepare a plan yourself. Okay, from this week, from this month, the next 6 months, I will get prepared on these stuffs. Make a list of all the techniques you have, positive things and negative things, and try to improve on those things. Next, on the professional certification. So that might not be important for you now, but just to be aware, it might be for your long-term goal. Like these are the certifications you have in industry, like a PMP certifications. So these are awarded to the professionals who meet certain educational criteria. So suppose to apply for a PMP certifications exams, you need to have a minimum of 3 years of experience or 4,500 years of hours of leading a projects. And then you need to have a 35 PDU hours. So that is a formal educations you need to get from all the institutes or from online coaching. Then you need to read PMBOK, it's a project management book of knowledge. It's available on the Google. Some of the free copies you can download, and you can read those PMP requirements, even that will be helpful for your interview preparation as well. And next you have some Six Sigma certification. On Six Sigma certifications, aims for a perfect or zero defects. Again, there are different types of Six Sigma like DMAC, DFSS, and CFSS. So DMAC, there's a Lean Six Sigma, most is used on process improvements in manufacturing industry. And DFSS is used for a design for Six Sigma. This is for designing hardcore during in the hardcore engineering field. And the CFSS used on customer focus Six Sigma. Either it can be used by an project management or customer service or a sales and marketing team. And again, you have a same value engineering. They call it as a value engineering. It's a systematic and structured approach for improving the project, products, and process. Again, you have a SAVE certifications. Basically, VAV, this value engineering is a VAV engineering certification. So reducing the cost of the product or eliminating some of the processes with respect to the form, fit, and function. So they have got certifications on these as well. Then we have a professional engineering, that's a PE licensing. I think this is not much used in India, but again, I have seen in India also they have got some of the institute. I think in Bangalore they have got Indian Statistical Institute. I think they provide this PE licensing. So basically, PE licensing is the one like they call it as a professional engineer. So they are the one who has been certified to the highest standard of competency. It's a symbol of achievement and assurance of quality. For example, if you prepare any of the design files or if you have any FE analysis report, that need to be signed off by an PE engineer. Without the sign off of the PE engineer, so most of these validation test reports will not be accepted in primarily in automotive industry. So that need to be certified by an or authorized by an PE engineer. And next you have if you want to be an auditor field, you can do AS9100 or ISO 9001 certification. Again, it's widely used in most of the industries for as a part of QMS, quality management system. And next you have a Kaizen. Kaizen is the one. It's a process improvement tool. It's a competitor to Six Sigma tool. It's a low investment, and basically this is used in manufacturing industry to improve the work environment. So you can maybe you can get some of this information on the Google. So when you prepare for interview, if you have at least something basic knowledge about these skills, it will be an added advantage when you go for interview. I think Kazi, I think we are running out of the time already. We are across 45 minutes. I had couple slides. I think we can cover that in future, I guess.
Okay, it's okay, Raghu.
It's okay. Okay.
Yes, no problem. Yes, no problem.
Okay. Okay.
No problem.
Okay. Yeah, again, professional certification. This is not important for you guys now. You can plan this as a long-term goal. So sometime interview will ask, what's your long-term goal? So you can tell, okay, I want to get a PMP certified. So then you can tell, okay, yeah, I need at least 3 years of experience on managing the project. So then I can do this professional certification. So then interview will having a good benefit. You will be having a good. You'll get a good like positive impression on, okay, this guy now at least you need 3 years of experience to do this PMP certifications, and he has a long-term plan. And try to learn. I think I heard from I think you have a project management subject in your engineering. So kindly go through those project management process. You might be not able to do 100% study. So at least you can express your interest on, like you have 10 knowledge areas, 49 process groups, and 5 processes. So at least if you can explain them on all those stuff, so it gives a good impression for you. Suppose if impression, and again, if you're applying for any project management, project coordinator role, so then for that you need to have this PMP certifications knowledge about that. Then if you're applying for any of the Six Sigma role, you might not get directly the Six Sigma role since you are a fresher. But if you understand the Six Sigma concepts, that will be helpful for you to be an engineering field or to be in an operations field. Okay. And next on briefly, I will go through some of these project management tools or Six Sigma tools, wherein Some of the interviewer might ask you about this. If you have any of the knowledges, you can tell them. One is on a requirement KG. They call it as a KG analysis. It is a method of developing relationships among the issues. So it helps to drill from high level issues at one level of the context to the more detailed set of common reusable statements. So basically this KG is particularly used in while collecting inputs and inputs or / voice of customers from different people. Basically Six Sigma is a process improvement tool. So during process improvement, you cannot define any processes on your own. You need to talk with the different cross-functionals or different stakeholders. Okay, so you'll be preparing an interview guide. Okay, what all the and in the interview guide you'll be listing about 10 different questions to be asked for. You will be asking the same questions for 10 different people. So then the responses from each people or each stakeholder might be different than to one another. So then based on when you have all those voices, you will put onto the like a whiteboard. You will be using a post-its and will categorize all the responses which are matching to one another. So suppose for then you'll be this shows the demand. This just I took an example from the Google demand for a speed of service as stress our capable to deliver. The response for this question. So different people have given different answers. So they will be categorizing or arranging those responses to as an one umbrella, and out of which from there then you will be if there are different peoples in the group, you will be voting on the for which of the voice of the customer we need to focus on that. So this is and just like if you have like voices of around 80 voices, so drilling down that you cannot focus on the 80 voices. Out of that 80 voices, maybe you can focus only on the 10 voices, because the 70 voices already is covered under those 10 voices. So then you'll be focusing on 10 voices. So grouping those 10 voices, for that you will be using some voting methodology. So this is one of the tool. It's a good tool to collect the inputs from the different stakeholders and minimizing those into an actionable as an actionable item. And on the next tool, you can use an RACI diagram. So they call it as a responsibility assignment matrix. It is called as a RAM. So basically, this is describes the participation by various roles in completing the task or deliverables for a project or a business. And a RACI is an acronym, is driven from like a responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed. Responsible is the person who is responsible for completing the task or step in the process. Accountable is the person whose task is for ensuring that all the steps or necessary steps are completed. Then C is consulted, is must be consulted in any of the project design work. And I stands for informed, and it's the results that all the results must be informed. So to give an example, there's a SharePoint Go Live documents is one of the project. So if you see on business requirement document, so these are the different stakeholders or the different project team members working on this project. And these are the different tasks or milestones you will be completing for this project. First, you need to list down these all things on the x-axis and the y-axis one. Okay. And then you can assign with it. Okay, for example, business requirement document. This is a SharePoint engineering group. Okay, for them you need to consult them while defining the business requirement. And the SharePoint developers, for them you need to just inform. I stands for inform. Just you need to inform them. Accountability, project manager. He is the one accountable for doing this collecting of this business requirement. If he is not satisfied, then you might tell, okay, this business requirement document is not completed. You cannot complete this project. He is the one authorized to say yes or no for the project. Okay, he is the one. For example, to give an example in a college, HOD is the one. He is the one approver for any of the decision making in the department of the mechanical engineer. So he will be the accountable. And next, if Kazi is doing any of the project for his HOD, then Kazi he will be the responsible for doing the task. Then he might consult another some other faculties for doing some other work. So those names will be under C. And some other faculty members, just for them, for your information only. So for them, they will be considered as an I. So in any of the rows, there will be only one accountability. Okay, there might be multiple responsible persons, but accountability lies with only one person. And also, if you can see one of this communication, one person can have both accountability and responsibility. If it's a small project or small milestone, you can have both accountability and responsibility as well. But for any of these work or milestone, there need to have only one accountability. There will be multiple responsible persons, multiple informers, multiple to be consulted. Okay, so you can try. You can use this and there's nothing much on rocket science or any of these tools. You can use this one while doing your industry project or while doing any of your VA work, or any of doing any of your mechanical association work, or any of your homework or personal life work. You can do all these RACI diagram and make sure you understand the concept of this. This is a very much important tool, simple tool and basic tool, and important tool for your career path. And next, you can use an PUG matrix, or you can call it a PUGH matrix. Basically, this is one of the most widely used method of finding out the best solution once the number of alternate solutions have been generated. Basically, how it works is, suppose you are designing any component. Okay, you have designed a component which has got the three different concepts. Okay, so when if you are going to an industry, 3 engineers are working, and 3 engineers have brought in 3 concepts. So that all these 3 concepts will go to your manager, and how you will be shortlisting which concept is the best one. You might tell, okay, this might be having a lesser cost, this has got lesser weight, this is easy to assemble, this has got high durability, this is high reliability. But some of the concepts might be having a positive, some might be having a negative, and some might be a neutral benefit. So for that, we use this PUG matrix. So what you will do, you will be listing all your criteria onto this y-axis, and all the different options names or different options on this x-axis. And then you will be having a baseline. Baseline is the one, suppose if you are comparing. To give an example, now today you have a bike of Pulsar. Okay, that is called as a Pulsar bike. What are the criteria you need? Okay, it need to be have less cost, it have good safety, it need to be lighter in weight, its aesthetics need to be good. So those are the criteria you will be listing on this y-axis. And on the baseline, you will be putting those as a 0. Okay, 0 stands for it's an it doesn't have any positive impact, doesn't have any negative, it's a neutral position. So we're making this as a baseline, all the zeros. And then you'll be comparing that feature with suppose if you're buying another Ninja bike, then you're comparing the Pulsar to Ninja, how it is safe. So if Ninja bike is having the safer, then you'll be having a plus. If it is not safer, then you'll be making as a negative symbol. If it is having the same safety feature, you will be making it as a 0. So it doesn't, there is no difference between Pulsar and Ninja bike. So like advice, we can list on all your criteria, and you can put all plus and minus and zeros over here, and then you will get the net ranking. So here now it shows the alternative 1, it says as a rank number 1, and this has 2 and this has 3. So then I will be selecting alternative 1 as a good option for me to go, good to go, like that. So so you can use this tool on not only for your career life, you can use it for your personal life, while buying any of purchasing or any of the bikes, cars, or house, or any of the stuff. Or if you're moving to any other different cities, you can list on all these criteria. Or finding a new job, if you've got 2 to 3 job offers in mind, then how to evaluate all those things, you can use this matrix. And next on PFMEA and DFMEA. Again, PFMEA stands for Process FMEA, and DFMEA stands for Design FMEA. So already FMEA is a method or procedure which analyzes the potential failure modes in operations management and product development within a system. So PFMEA basically is used in manufacturing, like in operations team, and DFMEA is used in engineering team. So both are again falls under FMEA. So FMEA is the primary one. So again, if you go for an like in a customer relationship team, they will having a CFMEA, a customer focused failure mode effective analysis. If you go to HR, they will be having a different FMEAs. So basically, we need to focus, since we are mechanical engineer, we will focus more on PFMEA and DFMEA. These are the primary one. If you can do all this stuff, you can do any of other FMEAs. Okay. So basically, DFMEA is an application of FMEA, a specialty for product design. And FMEA is used for analyzing the failure modes for a particular process that might be taking place. Again, I will not go deeply onto this. You might be having this stuff in engineering. And basically, you will be listing all on the item function here. What are the requirements that part or process need to achieve, and the potential failure mode, effect mode, and the important thing is on severity, occurrence, and detection. So for that, to do this, to achieve this severity rating, you will be defining the rating from 1 to 10. If you define 10 as the highest, you can rate these numbers. And occurrence, again, you will be rating the same number from 1 to 6 or 1 to 9 based on your company. They will be having some set of criteria. And detection. So then you will get an RPN number 7, 6, and 3. So these are things will be get multiplied 7, 6, and 3. So wherever you will get the high RPN number, so you need to focus on, for example, you see a narrow pen angle when writing. So this has got high RPN number. So RPN stands for report program number. So this has got 280. So this is the highest of all this stuff. So then you will be focusing on eliminating this risk, this RPN number from 280 to the less than 80 or 100. So after this is the recommended actions they have done. So writing the test plan, something they have done here. So after then basically what they do is during the start of the project, they will do this RPN, they run this RPN. Then once you are done implemented this recommended actions or mitigated those issue, then again you will be doing this FMEA for this severance, occurrence, and detection, and you will be seeing the reduced value. Okay. Again, there is an difficult thing here, we don't have any defined targeted RPN number. Like for example, if you're less than 100, it is good, more than 100 is bad. It depends again on the company. Some company, they choose, in my company, we use around up to 80. If it is less than 80 RPN number, so we are I think between 40 to 80 RPN number. So those are having with yellow color grading. So yellow, yellow. So basically in industries, what they use is if it is in green color, you are good. There are no any other issues. So you are good. Your product is, what are the action items or issues you have? Those are good. It can be mitigated. So if it is in yellow, it says as you have issues in the product, but you have a mitigation plan. And if any of the items are in the red, it says that this is on the red and you need to focus on immediately, else your project might fail or it need to be scrapped. So in our company, we use from between 40 to 80 as an yellow, 40 to 80 as a green stage. I think 20 to 40 as an yellow. And if it is below 20, then you don't need to focus on those issues. So different companies or organizations, they'll be having a different RPN categorization. So you need to study whenever you go to the companies, their internal process, and identify what should be your minimum RPN requirements. But to get prepared for interview, this you need to understand this PFMEA, DFMEA process. So that will be a helpful answer for your interview preparation. And the last thing I have is on priority matrix. Priority matrix you can call, or it can call it as an urgent and important matrix. I think you might have gone through this in one of your engineering subject, Eisenhower matrix. So basically it has got 4 quadrants. It's got urgent, non-urgent, important, and not important. Or you can call this as a priority matrix or as a time management as well. Suppose, to give an example, you have 10 different Okay, first we'll go through this. Okay, so basically the first quadrant, do first, in the sense, if you are having any of the tasks that is an important, urgent, you need to do those things first. Immediately you need to do, because the first square is the task for the projects that are essential to your work or personal life. These are the things that need to be done either today or by latest by tomorrow and cannot be pushed back. You need to do it as soon as possible. You cannot delay these things. So this might be the examples for this is like replying to any of the emails, finishing any of your presentation for a project report, paying off your personal life, paying off your electricity bills, or booking some tickets. So all this stuff you cannot postpone. So those things you need to do it at first. Okay. And the quadrant 2 is says as important and not urgent. It's an important, but it's not urgent. In that case, you can do those things later. Sorry. In that case, you can do those things later. It might not be urgent. It might not be urgent, but it's an important. And you can and those need not to be finished immediately before you can, so that you can schedule a time, dedicated time for doing those stuff, and you can complete those work. And the example for this will be like updating any of the minutes of meeting after the meeting is done with your supplier or with your internal team, and preparing your long-term goals. All this stuff this not an urgent, but it's an important. Okay. And the next on the third square calls for a delegation. That's an urgent work, but it is not important for you. Okay. So these activities might be more important to someone else than you. So then make sure you ask yourself, if this task is important for you or it is for others. If somebody comes to your department and you are a design engineer, you are doing a CAD work, you might be asking you to do some analysis, but okay, that's not important for you because you are not an analysis engineer. Okay, that need to be done by the analysis engineer, so that you will take that request, accept that request from those cross-functional stakeholder, and pass on that information to the analysis engineer to do that work. Okay. And the next fourth quadrant is the eliminate one. It's a not important. It is a not important. So these tasks, you don't need to focus your time, because if you focus your time on this, then you'll be wasting your time and you will be not able to do some of your other works. So it's just a wasteful activities time. So big wastage time. So if you get any of those tasks, then you need to tell them, okay, we cannot do this work. For example, they might come you and ask, okay, hey, what is an if you're in a sales and marketing team, if somebody comes and asks you, hey, when you are launching this, when this design will be ready? Okay, sales and marketing, they will not be knowing when the product will be designed, all the design, what the design things are happening. So then you will be telling, okay, go and check with the engineering team, because you might be knowing complete information. If you want to search some information, then you'll be wasting your time. So better those things you can eliminate. So also this matrix is called as a time management. Suppose if you're getting some 10 different works on Monday, then you can focus from Monday to Friday, which are those work you can do it on Monday, which can be done on the Tuesday, which can be done on, which can be delegated for others, and which can be eliminated. So you can use this priority matrix. This is an important tool, basic tool. There is no any math or any analytical things are required. Just you need to reorganize yourself, reorganize your calendar and your time. And the next last slide I have is on online resources. Basically, I don't know whether you guys know, or these are the online resources we'll be using in our engineering industry. For example, like SKF. Suppose if you're selecting any bearings for your shaft while during the shaft design, so you'll be going to this SKF catalog website, and you'll be selecting the bearings. So you'll be getting all those radial load, dynamic loads, what should be the seal sizes you are selecting, what should be the top, basically, and also you will get what type of bearings you need to select for different types of radial load bearing, or thrust bearing, or ball bearing, roller bearings, and all this stuff. Everything, all the bearing information will be there. Even you can learn yourself, even though Currently, if you are not selecting any of the bearings for your application, just go there and just use some go through some of these bearings and try to understand their applications of those bearings. So for vertical load, you need to use the thrust bearings or any other bearings. You can understand for which type of application, what type of bearings will be used. This will be an important questions in the interview when you go for any of these design engineering industry, where it involves the shaft casting. So this is an important thing. And what are the clearances you need to have, interference, clearance, or those stuff. And next you have an Misumi, Misumi and McMaster. These are the website where you will get all these ready-made available components. For example, seals, washers, nuts, what all those dimensions, readily available components. You can select from this website. Suppose if you're designing any of the component, you can go to those website and you can select those. Even bearings are also available here. All those components are available, so you can select those and you can order those components. When these are used is during prototyping. During prototyping, so you need to select some of the components for releasing to the market, but your sourcing or procurement team will not be helping you to get those components because it's an engineering work or prototyping work. So during that time, engineering team need to be high alerted to get all these components in time, so that during that time you can use this Misumi or McMaster, and you can get those. It's just like an Amazon or a Flipkart and this thing for this site for our mechanical industry materials. You can go to that website, select the material based on the dimensions. Again, you can learn a lot over there. Rather than selection, you can learn a lot, different type of materials, different types of shaft, different types of dowel pins. Like giving an example, you can get all those information over there. And then on asmu.org, you can visit those websites. You will be having some conferences if you're interested in attending some of the conferences or getting some webinars over there. Then again, there are some other toolkit. I think here, if you go onto the CIT toolkit, you will get some engineering information on all the components. And there's one more thing, Linda. I don't know whether you guys know or not. Linda online courses. I think for students, it might be a free, I guess, if you have a college email ID or stuff. You can check on that. It's an important tool where you can get most of the presentations or trainings over there. You can spend your time, either even you can download this app on your cell phone or link through, I think Linda is through LinkedIn, is brought by LinkedIn. So you can get a lot of courses. You can just go through all those stuff. Then again, LinkedIn already, you know that. And then you have edx.org. Again, here also, this is search engineering. Here also, we got a lot of college universities. They offer courses for at lower cost. I think basically this is only in North America, I guess. But there are some other free courses, sometimes like Harvard, Stanford universities. Though they conduct some webinars, those things will be there on this edx website as well. The next, you can research something on the Glassdoor. Suppose if you're applying for any of the job, if you want to know what is their interview process and what are the basic questions they are asking, you can go onto the Glassdoor and you can look into that. Go to the Glassdoor, type in the company name and go for, you can search some people like, even they might have put some basic salary, what the salary package they might be offering, and what might be the interview questions, and what might be the what will be the interview process. So all those stuff on the Glassdoor. Most of the big companies will be the, not might be the small colleague. For example, if you go for SKF, if you go for a Cummins, or if you go for a Micro Bosch and Eaton, all these stuff, GE, Siemens, these big companies' information will be there, not on the small companies. Then Simply Learn, Coursera, Engineering Toolbox. Again, I think Simply Learn, Coursera is paid, I guess, but again, still there are some free available information where you can go and search for those information. And again, Engineering Toolbox. Again, this is an similar to, I think, CI Toolkit, I believe. You can get some engineering information. You can self-study. So if you don't have any books or anything, just you can go there and you can read those topics before going for any interview. Okay. Yeah, that's all I have for today. Sorry, I took more time on this. And now we
This
can.
is this is the best webinar we have done so far, and we have never seen any speaker answering so many questions in the presentation itself. We took a lot of questions during the registration also, but you
Okay.
have answered like most of them. I'll just pick up a few questions because as they have gone through your profile, they're more looking towards like how one should look at the preparation for GATE or GRE, like from both the perspective, like what is the scope and how they should look at it.
GATE or GRE? Actually, I had not done for GRE. GATE, I think I had prepared, but I don't have much knowledge about preparation for those. But again, yeah, recently I did for IELTS. Again, that is only for IELTS. I don't have much information on that, Gagan. I think maybe better to contact those uh, authorized training centers. But again, to get, see, for example, GATE, when I prepared, again, basically GATE preparation is nothing but like studying your entire engineering 8 semester subjects, getting those stuff at one place. So you cannot skip any of those. Either if you are good at strength of mentors, you cannot, and you are not good at organization, on operational research, you cannot skip all, because you'll be having questions on all those stuff. So I think it's to my knowledge, when I did my GATE, I think I did sometime 2011 or 2012, I guess. I couldn't get a good marks, but you need a lot of preparation. At least I think you need 6 to 8 months of time for preparation.
Right. And most of them have asked everybody is into their pre-final and final year of their college. So most of them are asking like, how do we look at career? Like basically, how do we choose where do we have to go? Like you have given so many
Yeah.
options today. You have given options. Yeah. But they're looking
Yeah.
from your perspective, like how do we see ourselves into the industry?
See, basically, if you want to see an industry, like basically you need to think, first you need to list down what's your strength and weakness and what's your interest. So when I did my diploma, to give an example, when I did my diploma, I was looking my cousins, they were in, they did only just diploma, and when they told, when they work in industry, they were telling, doing engineering is better than doing, don't stop your diploma. I was never intended to do my engineering. I thought after diploma, I got a job in telco. I thought to go for a job, but my cousins told, no, do your engineering. So then I did my engineering. So when I got into engineering, then I realized I need to be in the design field. I don't want to be in operations. From day one, that was there, but I was very much keen that I need to get exposure in operations. Then I want to be on the design side. Even when I got a job in Cummins, when I put me into the manufacturing, they were not ready me to release to the engineering department. They were asking you to continue in operations, you do your MBA. But I told no. If I want to do an operations job, then I could have done in Bangalore. I have come from almost like 1,000 kilometers, and I don't want to do an operation job here. I can do that with job over there, but I need an engineering, because that was my, from day one. I was very much passionate about all these CAD CAM skills. Even after during my diploma, also I did advanced mechanical CAD. So it was my interest. So again, to your question, like you need to pick what's your strength and weakness. You are good at technical, then going on to the design field is not a bad idea. If you are not good at technical, then going to the engineering, and then you might be just end up and as a CAD engineer. So for going to be in design field, you need to have a good technical skills, then go to there. And if you're good at like in a people management and doing all this volunteering work and in those stuff, then you can be on the operation side. So this is basically more on non-technical skills are there, but there we are more using a more of people management skills. So again, you need to choose your strength and weakness, do the strength and weakness metrics, and then you can choose your career.
Right. I think it is better to do a SWOT analysis and just
Yeah,
put those
SWOT
4
analysis.
boxes.
4 boxes.
Exactly.
You can do SWOT analysis and define what's your strength, what's your weakness, and if you want, if you think, okay, this is my strength, and if I want to be on design field, this is my weakness. If I'm lacking the technical skill, then try to learn the technical skills. And Example, I have seen in our batchmates, couple people in 2005, I think they were working for a small scale industry in Pina, in a turbine industry, in a small scale industry. Okay. And they were feeling bad when I got a job in companies. They told, oh, you got a job in good company. We are working in industry for a $4,000 5,000 rupees salary over a year. And I told, just wait, sometimes you'll get a good thing. So now they are in a G. So now they are realizing, yeah, the hard time, whatever they faced for first initial 2 to 3 years, they have learned. If you go for a small companies, you will get to learn a lot than a bigger organization. If you go for a bigger organization, and if you're not into the technical side, then you will be just doing any presentations and just improving your communication skills, but you'll not be improving your technical skills. So focus on your strength and weakness, do the SWOT analysis, and do some certifications, and then you can go ahead from there.
And there's one question, like because many of have asked same question, but it is like in repetitive, like what to choose after BE or BTech mechanical, whether to go ahead with the MTech or to go with MBA, and whether to go, if we are going for masters, so should we take experience first and then get into the masters, or should we just go for the masters?
See, I did even after my engineering, I thought I need to go for my master's, but then I thought better first we'll do some job. Then I thought we'll go for an master's degree. So like again, it depends on individual interest and their financial strength. So if you are good, a good family backup, and you don't have any other constraints, then you can do your master's degree and then you can go for the job. Again, if you have any financial constraints, and again, if you want to get an good experience before going for your master's degree, then better do at least work for around 2 years and then go for master's. Because now, see, another thing is like whatever I did my master's, I had not paid from my pocket. I got through my employer from both in US as well in India. Okay, so when you get into the job, you prove to your manager that you are getting a good ratings first for 1 to 2 years, then obviously then you will get an sponsorship from your company to do your master's. And also when I did my master's in machine design, and I think, don't know whether now they have that, if you have a sponsorship from your company, you can get in good reputed top colleges. Doing master's degree in top colleges is better not to do in small colleges than paying that. Now I think fees might be more than 2 lakhs, 3 lakhs. So if you do with a company sponsored, 2 benefits is, one is monetary benefit you will get, and second thing is you can get a sponsorship quota. So even though if you're getting a less number of scores in the gate, but you'll get a good college, then you can get a good experience over there. Again, doing an MBA, again, if you want to be in technical field, then do it in a master's. And if you want to be on a management side, then do MBA. Okay, if you want to be in sales marketing, or if you want to be in the operations, or if you want to be project management, then you can do an MBA. Or if you want to be on the technical side, then do master's degree.
Right. So let's pick up some questions like from the participants today. We got 3 questions as of now. Guys, you can choose your Q&A option to ask your questions. So there's this question by Amit. Can one attain a good designation in company just by completing Six Sigma training after BE without doing any masters?
This Six Sigma, you can do your Six Sigma training, but what happens is you will get some list like an yellow belt certification, I guess, and also just yellow belt certification you will get to get a green belt certification in an industry. For example, you want to do 3 projects. Once you do 3 projects, you will get a green belt certification. That is for your lifetime validity. And if you do 5 projects, you will get a black belt certification. And once you do the 5 black belt projects in a 2 years time, there's a time. For getting a green belt certification in industry, there is no any cap limit. You can do it maybe in 5 years time with 3 projects. Once you complete the 3 projects in the same industry, then they'll give you a green belt certification. That's for lifetime. And next you have black belt. And for black belt, you need, that has got a time cap of 2 years. Most of the industries, you need to do 5 projects that will be a full-time role. Doing green belt certification will be a part-time role. You'll be doing engineering work and doing Six Sigma work. Black belt is a full-time role for the company. And next will be the MBB, Master Black Belt. Again, there you will be managing all these black belts and Six Sigma projects. When you do any certifications outside your company during initial, you might get only just, I think, yellow belt certification, I believe. You might not get green belt certification. Okay. But again, there is one more thing, ASQ, American Society of Quality Engineers. They are pioneers in Six Sigma. So they give some certifications on this. But to get a green belt, I think you need to have a project. So if you're working outside, you'll not be having a project to do that. So if or other way is, if any of the industries, I don't think so they'll provide this. Okay, you can tell them, okay, I'm doing a Six Sigma project. If you can certification, if you can give me a project, I can work on your project on free of cost. If they are able to give that, then you can do that. So without a project, getting a Six Sigma green belt is difficult.
Right. So there's a question by Manju, like looking at the future technology, which program, language, oblique courses or softwares we can learn, or we should be giving importance to. So I think Manju is from CSC background, if I'm not wrong. You can just mention in the chat, Manju, if you want to add something. So this is like she's asking, like looking at the future technology, what all program, language, courses or softwares they should be learning, also an add-on skill which they should have basically.
Yeah, currently the hot market is like, even this for non-mechanical engineers, even mechanical engineers also doing like a data analytics. So data analytics is the one people are more on. It's a hot market globally, data analytics. And second thing is cyber security. Data analytics and cyber security, these are the top things going on the market, because these are new to the market and people are learning. So a lot of things you can do online right now. Out of this pandemic, almost the university has gone online. So these are the two things I think people are more focusing.
Right, during our webinars also, like from blockchain to AI, MLP, all these things are coming like up anything, and you can pick up any of these areas and do research on that. There's this question by Durgesh. I didn't get it properly. Like a Google company package with coding and mechanical engineering, a high set package without coding package. Durgesh, can you please rephrase your question and post it again so that we can clear? So you can check in the Q&A. Maybe it's he's asking about the package in Google company with coding and without coding, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, Google company package with coding, mechanical with I don't know, like exactly like a question is like he's asking whether with what should be the salary package with coding for mechanical engineer.
Right.
Yeah, but again see, like they will be having, see, all these companies, they will be having like a standard package for freshers. Wherever you go, like right now I don't know what is the package, but again they will be having a standard package globally. So with coding or with no coding, again it depends on if they are hiring. Basically they will be looking for a coding. Without coding they will not hire you. Okay, as a fresher they won't, because their salaries pays are too high. They cannot offer the candidates without any experience to sitting on the bench. So you need to have a good experience on the coding, and don't think about the salaries. If you're going for the big company like Google, Amazon, I don't know, Facebook is there in India or what, I don't know. You go for NASDAQ, Siemens. If you go for like a top company, don't think about salaries, because already you will be having a standard package from them. So that is self-sufficient. Only thing, if you're going for a small industries, then you might be thinking to go with that company or not, because today I'm really joining here. After 2 months, if I get a job in another company, what should I do? You might be in dilemma in that situation. But don't think about on big companies package and this stuff.
Right. So I guess there are no more questions in Q&A as of now. Okay, there's a question by Raj Eksab. What are the government jobs for mechanical engineers? I think government jobs are open to all, but you can specify few if.
Yeah, the government jobs, like now, for example, if you go for a defense, DRDO, ISRO, these are our government jobs. These are scientific industries, so you'll be getting all those jobs. And also you have a government job. For example, if you go for all these electricity boards, even there they will be having all this, even for electricity board, primary for electrical, even for mechanical engineers are there. And if you go for railways, you have a railways, RRB, Railway Recruitment Board. So, and you have a job in all the government job sectors. Those are limited, but again, those are will be, you might not get an exposure what you're getting in the manufacturing industry. But if you get a good, like if you're getting in a DRDO, even though if you get through a contract job, please go ahead with DRDO and ISRO, and they'll be having some subcontracting through some other agencies. You will be able to do there. Even if you get a contract job, if you're getting a CAD job, please go and opt for that.
Right. And I don't know, like during my time it was there, but you can check this opportunity by Indian Army as well. They are giving opportunities to mechanical engineers under technical entry, so you can actually check that as well. I just know because like they came when I was there in the college for the engineers. So otherwise, that is the only government job I know, like which is like specifically for mechanical engineers. They do have some technical entry. You can check on that. So there's a question by Pushpak. It's take a long time to get success in mechanical career, especially in design field. Does it really, is it really worthy? How do you justify that? The chances of success rate is high or not? Even if we have a good software skills. He's having two questions. This is the first actually. So yes, you can exactly. So he's asking two questions. Out of which this one is the first.
Pushpak. It's a long time to get success, especially in design field. See, like getting, if you have only the good software skills, it doesn't mean that you can get success. You need to have both technical skills and good software skills. For example, if you have a good software skills, you can get into an engineering industry, but you might be able to just do just a drafting job. But if your intent is first to get a job, then try to study of those components. Suppose if you are doing any of the, to give an example, if you're designing any of the CAD models of the shaft, okay, so there will be some of the companies, if you go for there will be some analytical group and non-analytical group. So analytical group is the one, they just designed this calculation, they will calculate the minimum shaft diameter, and they will give you some run the critical speed analysis, all those calculations, and they will give you some design. They will ask you to run the CAD model. You can go back to them and ask them, okay, how did you do the calculations? How did you run the critical speed? And go back to them. So their people will not deny you that, okay, we will not teach you. So get that information from them, and you try to understand how they're designed or they've done the calculations. From there, you can pick up the technical skills. Okay, and it doesn't take any. Again, at times we cannot predict how much time. There is no any defined time. So again, it depends upon your interest and how you are picking up the topic. So it's really worth you need to spend a lot of time in understanding those theory concepts, kinematics, vibrations. If those components involved, if you're selecting a spring, you need to have kind of knowledge about spring rates, those vibrations. So like that, different aspects are there. So you need to have you need to get hands-on experience on that. Until unless you don't get an hands-on experience, you cannot be technically strong. So for example, to be in design field, to my answer is you need to be technically strong. And second one is something that can you give some info regarding the startup in mechanical field? What are the opportunities? Startup. I have not gone through some startup, but couple of my team members like they are a startup. For example, one of my friend batchmate from, I think he was from ENC. He was working in a good company. I think he was working in Honeywell in Bangalore. Both husband and wife working in Honeywell, and one Honeywell, one Bosch. And they worked for 5 to 6 years, and they felt the Bangalore is too costly, cost of living and this stuff. And their family's background is from entrepreneur background. So they went back to Davangere, and they are set up a, and my friend, he I think he surveyed most of the industries, most of the locations. He went to China, Japan, and here and there. And finally, he was able to set up a factory for manufacturing of copper wires that is used in our electricity board, he is getting a lot of government projects. Okay, some are success, some are not success. Again, if you want to be onto the entrepreneur, I think then better do some entrepreneurship course to get on what are the key skills you needed. I think and some other people have seen like in IIM or what this Symbiosis from in Mumbai. It's a famous college. I don't know. Forgot that name. I think VGTI or someone. So they have done some entrepreneurship courses to get the more information on how to set up a plant or a company. Then you can get more details. Some people are in our batch, they are successful. One guy is in Hubli by name Prakash. Is from a mechanical background. So he has set up a Neo Valves company. So I think he had some background with families to background. Now he's successful as an entrepreneur.
Right. So I marked one question as answered. There was this question by Manjunath. So if we should work in a contract job, whether it is good or not.
Yeah, contract job working is good or not is like is now most of the some of the companies they do some contract to hire. Okay, usually they don't want to spend much on the resources because if you have a contract job, they will be having a lesser liability, except they pay some salary to their employer and they will pay some commission, keep themselves, and they will pay. So they will not be liability for them, and they don't want to take a risk because most of this contract job will be on engineering services industry. Okay, engineering services there because their projects are like periodic in nature. Sometimes they will be having a projects and high load, some low load. Again, now due to this COVID, now most of the companies they are having contract job. Even some of my friends they are working. So if they get a job only, then they'll get paid. If not, they will not getting a paid. They are sitting at home. So it cannot be a good or bad. But if you don't, something is better than nothing. So if you cannot, if you need, because you cannot sit idle for, see what happens, like if you're, I think now the competition is too high, I guess. Now I was looking, some of my friends in electronics, they have opened a company and they were looking for the candidates who are passed out just from 2018 and 2019 and 2020. They are not preferring the candidates below 2018. So I don't know why they are doing that, but there might be some of their personal things. So if you are sitting idle for more than that, then you will be facing a lot of issues in future. So at least if you have something to start the job, something you can put onto your resume. Basically, you people are lagging to be now is to something to update on your resume. Right. So doing the job a contract job is not a bad idea.
Right. And thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for a beautiful webinar, beautiful presentation, and you have answered all the questions which we received during the registration and also the live questions. I request Mr. Khari sir to please come on platform and give word of thanks and conclude the session.
Yes, yes. Okay, really, it was a very nice session, a very educating session to our students. Mr. Raghu Kumar BS, our proud alumni, has covered the entire things which our students were expecting regarding their career paths for in mechanical engineering. Before presenting vote of thanks, I request our HOD sir to talk on this occasion. Go ahead, sir.
Okay. Good evening to one and all. Mr. Raghu Kumar and Mr. Gagandeep Singh and all my dear students who attended this webinar on career path for mechanical engineer. I'm very happy that Mr. Raghu Kumar, now I know very well, and also we are in touch with each other in almost within in a week or within a month also we are in touch with each other also, and he is always asking about still he is in his position, still he wanted to pursue the PhD. He asked about wanted to pursue the PhD under my guideship. Anyhow, he has given the valuable talk on different number of ways to get a good job for mechanical engineer. today know that we are facing the admission in mechanical engineering. But we need to educate the student what are the opportunities in the mechanical discipline, and he has given valuable information about this, and also he has given the tips for how to prepare the interview, what is the strength of and potential field in the mechanical engineering, and he has given everything about that information to the mechanical students. And once again, I thank Mr. Raghu Kumar. In future also, we are expecting more from your side to give the information or to give the more knowledge to our student. And I thank Mr. Khazi, he is the alumni coordinator. And also I thank Gagandeep Singh, he is the our partner for building the narrowing the gap between the alumni and institute as well as department. Once again, I thank Raghu Kumar.
Yeah.
And thank you one and all.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you,
you. Yeah, yeah, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, Raghu,
Kaji.
Mr. Raghu Kumar. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
once again, first of all, my heartfelt thanks to our speaker, proud alumni, Mr. V.S. Raghu Kumar, for educating our students for this one regarding this career paths for mechanical engineers. And hello, am I audible, sir?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, yes, sir, you're audible.
Okay. And I'm very happy to inform you that to the speaker as well as our students, as we all know that we have launched and inaugurated our TCA, that is Tondadara College of Engineering Alumni Association portal in this year only, in the month of July. And we are trying to connect our students with our alumni, and it is just like a homecoming we are feeling. This is what the first webinar that is given by our alumni V.S. Raghu Kumar. This is what the first webinar. He has put the good foundation for all the alumni to present their interested topic so that they can mentor our students regarding their career and all. And I and also in as a part of Tondadara College of Alumni, Tondadara College of Engineering Alumni Association portal, in association with this WOW company, they have started Student Alumni Relationship Cell, that is SARC. Under that, they are organizing student and internship program to connect our students with alumni by different phases. This is the first task. The webinars we are organizing different webinars by and by inviting our alumni as a speaker. And and also I thank our students also, the third year students, pre-final year students, who are the part of this SIP, that is Student Internship Program, to connect our students with alumni. 5 students, they are from each department, four from each department, they are trying to connect our students with our alumni. This is what this one TCA alumni portal and all. Okay. And in the future, we are conducting like this. We are organizing in association with WOW. We are organizing like this different webinars, and we are inviting our alumni as a speaker and as a resource person to present a topic on this. And my heartfelt thanks to Mr. B.S. Raghu Kumar, who has covered all the things so that it can cover that career path for mechanical engineers, like how to attend the interviews, how to build their resume, and what are the different career domains, and different CAD/CAM, CAE, and product life cycle. Everything he has covered. In spite and also in spite of the running out of time, he has spared his 2 hours time with us. We are very much thankful to him. And also, I am thankful to our beloved HOD, Dr. D.M. Gowder sir. And I thank Mr. Gaganjit, who is the host of this webinar. He is host. Mr. Gaganjit is leading this particular team, our students team in the SARC, Student Alumni Relations itself. And I thank our students who have joined and who have asked the questions and actively participated in Q&A session. And I thank our faculty members also. Yeah, thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, Kazi sir. Raghu sir, before we move towards concluding, any concluding remarks from your side, and then we'll go ahead and conclude.
First of all, I'm delightful for the Honorable Principal of TC, Dr. M.M. Auti, and HOD, to the DM Gowder sir, and Professor Kazi, convener, and Nitesh Kumar, who got me connected through LinkedIn. He approached me to do this webinar, and also Gagandeep for your coordination on this. And also thanks all the students for giving me an opportunity to share my work experience. I wish good luck for the TC and his entire management and the students. And also wish you advanced Christmas and advanced New Year wishes, and stay safe and stay healthy. And once again, thank you for giving me on this opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the efforts of yours. You're giving webinar from your side early in the morning. Actually, it's like from 7 to 9, if I'm not wrong. You're sitting over there, and also appreciate the efforts of students. Those who are, in addition to their classes and projects, they are sitting late night and attending webinar for their own. So there's a reason we are doing this program, so that we can help you out in the career growth with the help of Alumni Network. Thank you so much. Thank you so much all for joining. And with your permission, sir, with your permission of Kaji sir and yours, can we move ahead and conclude the session?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Right, sir. Thank you all. Thank you so much. Good night. And we are signing off for today's session.